Hello, welcome back to Crushing Sounds. My name is Chris, and today we are looking at the newest album, Opus Contra Naturam, by legendary Behemoth.
I am nothing without him. Nothing is. I am no one in the search of the Deathless Sun.
So I'm back from my extended break. It was awesome, but of course quite a bit was released while I was away, and I promised I would chip away at that ever-extending back catalogue. So we start here today with the newest album by blackened death metal band Behemoth. They, of course, need very little introduction, but I'm going to do one anyway. Behemoth, of course, were formed in 1991, starting out as more or less a straight-up black metal band, but then adopted their more signature sound that they are known for today, and have since become one of the figureheads of blackened death metal subgenre. Although Nurgle, the singer, has mentioned that he doesn't like the band to be labelled. You know, I think most artists go through that kind of mentality at some point. Fair enough, I guess. Either way, they have a very strong reputation in the metal scene, releasing numerous critically acclaimed albums and their brilliant live shows. Of course, I love this band. Shouted about that enough when me and the guys covered Bloodstock Festival a few months back. They were amazing live, of course. Because I'm a filthy casual, dived in with The Satanist first. There really isn't much more I can say about that album that hasn't been said literally everywhere else in heavy metal. It's, of course, a masterpiece, one of the best albums of the 2010s for sure. I haven't heard all their back catalogue, mostly the stuff that they play live, but I do love Evangelion, if that's how it's pronounced, the Apostasy, and bits of Demigod as well. I loved You at Your Darkest, also had some great moments on it as well. This year's Bloodstock was the first time I had ever seen the band, so after that show I was more excited than ever for this newest album, Opus Contra Naturam, which I think is the right way to pronounce it, probably not. So right out of the gate, I love how this album begins. We get what falls dangerously close into one of those noise-based intro things, which of course I love so much. But this one's got the throat singing, the tribal atmosphere, and Nurgle's, of course, signature brilliant vocal style. Really made this track work as a build-up to the album. It sets that signature Behemoth tone perfectly. It sounds like a man desperately shouting to try and summon some sort of demonic deity. I mean, Behemoth in a nutshell, right? I also like how the song is called Post-God Nirvana. Does it say Nirvana or no? Nah, I'm joking, obviously. It's Nirvana. But I found it funny to see a V being used as a V and not a U. I know everyone's made the joke, and I know why Behemoth do that, but still, that caught my eye for some reason. Leads straight into the first track proper, Malaria Vulgata. Waste no time in getting straight into the Behemoth that we all know well and love. The frenetic black riffing style, the monster drumming from Inferno, reminding us why he's one of the best drummers in the scene right now, and those iconic Behemoth lyrics that are full of venom and darkness. The first line, "Let all Bibles preach the sermon of vengeance," tells you all you need to know about the themes of this album right off of the bat, and if you're even a little bit familiar with this band, this should come as no surprise. In fact, none of this album should come as any surprise. It's Behemoth in all the ways that you have loved them up to this point, although for some people, that has disappointed them. More on that later. The Deathless Sun comes charging straight in with that chanting chorus, and it's moments like this that make Behemoth stand out for me compared to a lot of their black metal contemporaries. It's their ability to make really powerful, emotive moments within all the chaos. A lot of black metal, particularly in traditional black metal, can feel very one note to me. The songs blast off at full intensity and carry that all the way through, and I'm not putting that style down. I love a bunch of that stuff too, but Behemoth just know how to make it feel epic. You all know if you've watched this channel for a while, I love epicness, just huge sounding music, and Behemoth do that expertly well within the confines of black metal, whether you consider them proper black metal or not. When the band played Bloodstock and they opened with the amazing Ora pro nobis Lucifer, that chorus of "For thine is the kingdom" just sounded massive and well deserving of being on a main stage in front of 15,000 people. This song, Deathless Sun, does exactly the same. Every time that chorus comes in, I'm chanting along with
I am nothing without him, nothing is.
Of my Herculean Exile, honestly, is a bit ploddy for me. It meanders quite a bit in the verses. I like that kind of swung descending line in the chorus, but it cycles around a little bit too much for me. This song lacks a lot of momentum for me, to be perfectly honest. Off to War! Exclamation mark. Is a strangely banal title among all the others on this album. That's a bit harsh, but you know what I mean. I love the driving riff that kicks the song off, but I also love that open interlude after the first verse. It felt a bit more open than the usual drop downs that this album does within each song. Also, after the solo, where it just ramps up the intensity, up to 10, culminating in the cry, "Off to War." It ends with the same lyrics as the first verse, which is filled with various pondering questions, which I thought was very cool. I haven't tried to find the actual meaning of this song, but I'd like to think it's about pondering these fundamental questions, searching for a belief system, and then devolving into conflict with others about these various questions. It all eventually ends up back where we started, with the same questions unanswered. It's a constant cycle, is my point, and no doubt that's a very surface level way to read this song, because Nurgle strikes me as a writer whose lyrics and words are rarely surface level. There's normally a lot more going on, but you know, just a thought. Once Upon a Pale Horse, I love that title, by the way. I was just going to breeze past this song because, to be honest, the verses don't really do anything for me. I like the rhythm of the riff, but I wasn't too enamoured of how the vocals were paired with it, especially the line, "Yet bound forever to this earth." Nurgle rushes the hell out of that line to make it fit. It felt a bit cramped, if that makes any sense. But after the second little bridge into the chorus that starts with "Go Forth," it all kind of flipped for me. I love the backing instrumentation, the subtle somber piece that I'm not quite sure what that is, but it adds so much more gravity to that section. I love how punchy the drums are, and that melody in general adds quite a bit of weight, which I think the beginning of the song was lacking. The vocals at this part are also more purposeful in general, so that's an improvement as well. The second verse bears a little bit better vocal-wise compared to the first, but that riff still starts to feel very repetitive at this point. At least we get a double chorus at the end, because as I say, it's another very strong chorus. Ending solo is pretty good too. My favourite track on the album, by far, "Thy Becoming Eternal." Yeah, the breathing in before a shout is very played out, but here it sounds like the end of a scream, and as in an actual scream, not a metal scream, if you know what I mean. Genuinely unsettled me when I wasn't prepared for it on the first listen, and I adore the backing vocals on this one. They are haunting, they are placed just right in the mix, and they add so much to the atmosphere of the song. The transition from the first verse back into the chorus is crushing. That rising lead guitar line that sounds so frenetic, but paired with that bum 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 beat, makes it sound huge and leads so seamlessly well back into the chorus. I love it. The second half of the song just keeps getting better, though. After another run of that rising lead guitar, the riff becomes more stompy and aggressive. Then the choir comes in which effectively leads into the song's outro, and I'm just a sucker for that kind of atmosphere. We're back to the epic vibes again. To me, it adds so much to the song by elevating it to that epic feel that I yearn for. Some people might consider it overkill, which is fair. I love it though. I kind of wish it was done more on this album, not gonna lie. Spoken word sections can be so hit and miss with me. It's rarely the middle ground. I either love a spoken word section or I hate it. Behemoth, of course though, just make it work every single time. It's one of the reasons "O Father, O Satan, O Son" is so memorable, as that outro is just perfect, not just for the song but for the album, period. It works here too. After that choir sets up the atmosphere of the outro, Nurgle's voice and words just get to me, you know. Not a huge fan of the production on what this spoken word vocal is doing. I'd prefer them to be a bit more raw, but hey, it still works, and the harsh vocals joining in on the last two lines, "We hail Satan, we hail thee," it just feels right. I always thought that was the closing track of the album. It certainly feels like one. But now there is one more track called Versus Christus. Fucking pronunciations, man. This song is, as well, just something else entirely. Longest track on the album by far at 6.5 minutes. Then this one goes through quite a lot of different things. It starts very mellow, very understated, with Nurgle doing some very, very low clean vocals. It's easily the most sinister part of the album. Other elements are added gradually. The drums and harsh vocals taking over are left to do their thing before the guitar adds a lot of heaviness before it reaches the intensity of a typical Behemoth song. It then cuts that intensity completely just to build it back up again. I see why that's done, but honestly, I would prefer them to, once they've spent that time gradually building up that sound, keep it there, or better yet, keep building it. This is the outro of the album. Make it sound huge. Granted, for the last section of the song, it's loud and it's fast and it's epic and more than justifies being the closing song of an album. I just would have preferred either shorten the song and have it the one build up, or keep the length of the song and make that build up last double the time to make it even more huge and massive and epic by the time it finally comes to its climax for the end of the album. That's just my personal preference, of course. But no, I felt cutting the intensity down back to the beginning to go back up again felt a tad unnecessary, and just could have added that more climactic feel to the album. That being said though, the short and to the point review of Opus Contra Naturam would be just really solid stuff. If you have even the most cursory experience with Behemoth from the last 20 odd years, you'll know what you're getting here. As I always say though, that doesn't at all mean that the album is boring or irrelevant, simply due to the fact that no one does this sound better than Behemoth, really, when you think about it. No other black metal band sells me on the occult setting, excites me with their frenetic riffing, and makes my head bang with strong, punchy choruses as Behemoth do. I will admit I did have an earlier version of this review where I said that what was a little bit disappointing was that nothing on this album absolutely blew me away. I tried very hard to write as if I wasn't comparing this album with the experience that I had the first time I heard The Satanist, but to be honest, I think that's exactly what I was doing. The Satanist, for me personally, is almost too good at this point. It overshadows the now 2 albums Behemoth have done since. When I take a step back and really look at this album in its own right, it's very easy to recommend this album, as again, this music is just some of the finest you can find in black and death metal. Normally I can look at albums in isolation quite easily. With this album here, I found it quite hard just because of how much The Satanist kind of looms over Behemoth's work at this point. I normally try to avoid other people's general consensus on an album if I definitely plan to review it. However, because I'm getting to this one quite late, I kind of couldn't avoid it, so I have seen some of the opinions on this album. And a lot of people, the general consensus around this album is that it's sort of lingers between okay to good, somewhat a bit disappointing, but not many people are that enamoured by it. A tad underwhelming, I guess, a lot of people have been saying, by the band's own standard. I can see why people think that. I did have my share of critiques here and there. Some sections of some songs didn't really do much for me. Nothing bad, but not perfect, and we know this band can achieve perfection. I think though that this album will grow to have more fans as it's given time to settle in. I recall a similar attitude amongst fans when I Love You at Your Darkest came out. I mean, how the fuck do you follow directly on from The Satanist? I know Mike had some thoughts about that album, if you can find that video. But in time, I think I Love You at Your Darkest has seen some resurgence from fans. I mean, just look at the channel Quest for Metal. He's always singing that album's praises. I think, hopefully, time will tell whether this new album will have that similar retrospective appreciation in time, because there is some good stuff here. Like Becoming Eternal is fantastic. I really like Deathless Sun as well. There's some stuff that will go down a storm live, I'm sure. But no matter whether The Satanist looms over this band for you or not, this album is still, as I said, really fucking solid stuff. Not their best work, by far, but it is still damn good. Behemoth have still got it.
Powers of the less happy.